If you have over $200,000 sitting stagnant in your bank, retirement account, or home equity, then you're literally losing money. On this show, you learn how to get that money working for you consistently and conservatively. Learn to grow your nest egg with your host, Shawn Winslow. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another Multifamily Monday episode. I'm your host, Shawn Winslow, and this is the Multifamily Money Podcast. What is going on, everybody? We got a great guest for you today. Before I get into that, for those that are new, every Monday we come at you all things multifamily real estate investing. I share from my own experience, bring on guests, share from their experience to just provide a ton of value in regards to real estate investing, usually aimed at the multifamily apartment side of things. And then every Friday we're coming at you with all things personal finance. We call it Finance Fridays, because I believe it's not what you make, but what you keep, right? You need to develop habits and discipline to get your money not only working, harder for you, but smarter for you. So you can create, whether you want to call it generational wealth or just the ability to achieve your goals, what your goals in life, and not, be so concerned when it comes to money, right? And just have, that confidence that that side of your life is going to work out. And so on that show, it's usually a lot of solo episodes from things that, I've done through my experience in finance, I'm in business, also like any topics that I'm interested in, I do research on and then share with you tips, tricks, strategies on how to really build wealth and keep wealth. But today's episode is on the, real estate side of things, and it's not multifamily. Actually, we have a guest on here that I met down in Nashville when I was at a mastermind, and he was one of the featured speakers, and he came in to talk to us about commercial real estate. Specifically, think, retail, industrial, office, that side of commercial. There's more sub asset classes too, but just think of that side of commercial. So he came in and shared his story. And so I asked him to come here and do that as well. He's a young guy, go-getter. He tells a story how he sold, $30,000 of Cutco knives one summer. And someone who knew that he broke all these records had a boutique commercial real estate brokerage firm. And they heard that he was moving back to the area and asked him to join their firm. So he dropped out of college, joined the firm, which for anyone that knows anything about commercial real estate, that's rare, right? It's a hard industry to get into, especially if you don't already have, your college degree or have some type of network or connection. It's tough. So he did that and then just crushed it. He started as a, leasing agent, leasing up commercial spaces. And then slowly over time, he saw where the business was going and saw where it needed to go. And those two things were diverging. And the management of that firm didn't want to go in the direction he thought was best. So he left and created his own brokerage firm. And I can't remember, he says in the episode, but it's doubled, tripled in his first year sales of what he was doing at that firm in the previous year because of the direction he wanted to go, in the direction he ultimately took his business. And now he still has that brokerage. So he has a management arm and investment arm. And so we get into all things commercial real estate, what leases look like, how they're different from multi, how they're structured different, terms are different. Then we talk about how it's really not that hard to get into it. Is people build it up to be. It's really not. And we kind of talk about the basics. We talk about how you could transition from multi into it, how you can kind of do a little mixed use, readaptive, taking a building that maybe was a bank or a garage and turning into, say, like a coffee shop. He has a cool project where he did something similar, and we dive into that. So this is a really fun episode. So anyone that has interest in commercial, which I think everyone should have a little knowledge about it, this is definitely an episode to listen to, take some notes. So our guest, Tyler Cauble, you might already know him. He has a YouTube channel. He's based out of Nashville, and just a really awesome guy. So without further ado, here's Tyler. Hey, Tyler, welcome to the show, my friend.
Shawn, excited to be here. Ready to talk about some commercial real estate.
Let's do it. I'm excited to have you, man. It's been a little time coming. We had some tough technical difficulties on the first one, so let's hope this one goes smooth. Just a little background for the listeners. just happenstance, Tyler and I met at a mastermind that he was speaking at. And it was kind of just perfect timing because we had a deal under contract at the time that had some commercial aspect to it. So both him being there and this episode is a little selfish on my part because I get to pick the brain. But based on what I've already heard from Tyler, we're about to have a really fun show. So Tyler, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I know you're a busy guy, so thank you very much. Second, if you wouldn't mind just jumping in, who is Tyler and what do you do out there in Nashville? I think you're located.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, look, the best podcast conversations come from the host actually being curious about the topic. So excited to dive into this with you as well.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of multifamily guys get the commercial real estate component of their deals wrong, right? I get called in to consult on even some big firms, like big national multifamily groups on what they should be doing with their commercial component because they are often required by the city to do it, or at least they recognize that it's going to be beneficial for their tenancy, but they really don't know how to approach it. And so I think that this conversation will be really good for anybody that's looking to find some creative ways, hopefully some income producing ways to add amenities to your multifamily properties. But I got started in commercial real estate back in 2013, always been on the commercial side, dropped out of college and just got a job offer to come be the in-house leasing agent for a boutique development firm here in town and focused just on leasing those properties. They were office, retail, and industrial properties for my first 2 years, but got to sit in on all of the development meetings every week. So my third year, 2015, I put together our first development deal, which was a 42-unit townhome development about 15 minutes southwest of downtown Nashville in an area called Bellevue. And as soon as we finished that, left, started my own thing. And now we've got a commercial real estate brokerage. I've got a commercial property management company, and I've got my own development firm. So we raise and syndicate capital for our own investments, but we also are boots on the ground for other investors looking to take their commercial real estate to the next level.
So let's talk about your first role. That's a great way to cut some teeth right there. Leasing. Yeah. So how'd you get into that job, and what do you think some of the key takeaways from? Because I think in any business you should start on the ground floor and really understand what's going on the day-to-day level. So if you don't mind diving into that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely invaluable. So I had sold to this developer the summer that I graduated high school. I sold Cutco knives.
Yep.
And it was an incredible experience, made, $30,000 that summer, broke every sales record I could get my hands on. And so, when he heard I was back in Nashville, he just reached out and offered me the job. And I didn't realize for the longest time, probably a year or two, how difficult it really is to get into commercial real estate. So I was very lucky on that front, but couldn't agree with you more. I think learning how these deals are done from the ground up has been one of the best things that we possibly could have done, because I got training on how to find and create income on your properties, right? Mm-hmm. And I got paid to do it. And so that's a skill set that we bring to every deal that we do. Is I've got a brokerage team. So whenever we're buying something, they probably already have tenants in hand that might be able to lease something from us. So, we've bought buildings, put them under contract, signed a lease before we closed, get the deal appraised based on the value with the lease in place, and bring, very little equity to the table sometimes. So it's pretty nice having that. And it just really helps you better understand how these developments work, mm-hmm. right? Or any investment, right? Because that's the number one thing that I feel like a lot of people get worried about when it comes to commercial real estate is like, yeah, there's a great value add component to this property. I can see it, but how are we going to find tenants for it? And that's why I tell people, just find a really good leasing team. It doesn't have to be us. It could be somebody that's in your market that understands how properties in that area are being leased, who's looking for, these types of spaces, and get them on your property. They'll start working on it. They don't get paid until they close the deal. So they're very incentivized to get out there and find you the right tenant.
Right. Yeah. So we're talking about tenants here. We're talking about leases, and most people listening to the show are probably pretty good with multifamily, but may not have, any clue about commercial and what's the difference. So let's just talk about that, because, leases and tenants, it's different from multifamily to commercial, and they're structured different, different terms, different periods. And from my experience, it's more, the tenant is more important. when you're buying a property. We can talk like, credit quality, the business itself. So if you don't mind jumping into that, what are some of the key differences that people should know about commercial leases?
Yeah, man. I mean, I actually think commercial real estate's easier than multifamily, which I know everybody listening is probably like, how is that even possible? I don't know anything about commercial real estate. But once you understand the basics of how commercial properties work, it's actually way easier than anything you'll do in multifamily. Because, in apartments, if you're buying a 100 to 200 unit apartment complex, you're having to look through all those leases. You're having to look at 100 to 200 units to make sure that the owner's not hiding something from you. It's a pretty intense due diligence process. Whereas, that same purchase price, you could probably get a higher cap rate and buy a commercial property with fewer than 30 tenants. Right. Yeah. So it's a far simpler process. But, on the leasing front, we don't have to worry about leases coming available every year. Sometimes that's a good thing in multifamily, right? Especially if you're doing value add, you want those leases to turn over so you can make some improvements and get a new tenant in there at a higher price. Yeah. But in commercial, we'll sign 5 to 10 to 20-year leases, and we'll go ahead and build in annual rental increases so that we don't have to worry about it for 5 years. We just know every year the rent's going to go up by 3 to 5%, and we don't have to worry about, getting that space refilled. And oftentimes these commercial tenants will build out whatever they need within the space. You don't always have to spend money to fix it up for them. Sometimes you do, and there are some advantages to doing that. But the leases are structured in multiple different ways. So there's really 3 primary types of leases. You got a full service gross, which means that the tenant pays you one lump sum, and then you as the landlord pay all of the expenses. You've got that's more common in office, but we're starting to see that move away. You've got modified gross, which is, the tenant pays you one lump sum, but then they also pay their own utilities, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's more like a multifamily lease. But the world that I like to play in, and that a lot of commercial real estate investors are moving towards, what they prefer is what's called a triple net lease, where the tenant pays you a base rent, but then they also pay their proportionate share of the property taxes, the building insurance, and the common area maintenance. So what's great about that lease structure is that you as the landlord don't have to worry about your property taxes going up and taking a huge hit to your NOI. Their proportionate share just gets passed through right to the tenant. So, if my property taxes go up by $100,000 in a year and I've got 50 tenants in this property, everybody, let's assume everybody's got the same amount of square footage. Everybody just pays $2,000 more that year, and it's already built into their lease. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's the powerful side of it. And I could just thinking right now, you talking about that, I could see, an easy value add play in commercial, not even having to lift a hammer. You buy a property that just has a gross lease, and you come in and put a triple net and then sell it. I'm sure that, it jumps the NOI, right? So cap rates stay the same. You're making value right there. And I'm sure I'm not the genius on this episode, Tyler. I'm sure that's a play everyone's taking all the time, but it that makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it's a great, easy way to just add operational value to a property, right? You don't have to do any improvements or anything. You just change the lease structure, sign a new lease, flip it to the next guy. I mean, you look at what's going on in the multifamily world right now with insurance rates.
Oh, man.
I couldn't imagine what it would look like in commercial real estate if our insurance rates were spiking like that. But I also wouldn't have to worry about it because it just gets passed through directly to my tenants that, hey, sorry, if you want to go argue with the insurance company, you can pay us to do that, or y'all can go do that. But it is what it is. Whereas in multifamily, it's kind of just we got to bite the bullet, underwrite this, figure out how to cover that cost.
Yeah. And that's another point too, why it's so important to underwrite and do due diligence on the tenant, right? Their credit quality, to make sure they can absorb anything that might happen, whether it's tax increase, insurance increase. But as long as they can, that's perfect, right? For you, it's not affecting your NOI. And then I know in some commercial leases too, there's, maybe you mentioned this already, and sorry if you did, but they have escalators or bumps every so many years. Maybe it's every year, maybe it's every 3 or 5 years. So I know that that's a great play too, because, it's not going to be anything usually, as far as I've experienced, anything like too large, but it's enough to keep you at or above inflation.
That's right. I mean, and it's just built in, right? So every year you get to count on that going up a little bit. I mean, I see some people that do a 10% increase in year 6, right? Yep. So let's say it's a 10-year lease. The first 5 years are flat. 6 years, it goes up 10%. And then the next 5 years, it's flat. But, my favorite way to do it is every year it just goes up 3 to 5%, because you end up capturing and staying a little more on track with where inflation is. But, a lot of multifamily investors will get worried. Why would I sign a 10-year lease? We don't know where rent's going to be in 7 years. Well, we have a way to combat that in commercial real estate, which is, the first 5 years, it increases at 3% a year. And then in year 6, it actually adjusts to 100% of then market rates. Wow. And then it continues to go up 3% from there. So, sometimes we'll look at that and say, oh, there's a chance for the tenant, it could actually go down, right? And you can build something in there to say, hey, it won't go down more than, 10%.
Right.
But if then market rates are, 50% higher than what you signed 5 years ago, well, you're going to automatically adjust to that. If the tenant wants to stay, that's what they've got to pay. I mean, if they're going to exercise that renewal. And most of the time, what you'll find, as long as you're being fair and you're treating your tenants right, if that is the true market rate, they're not going to move. Right. Because then they're going to have to pay for all of their moving expenses, tell all of their customers where they've gone. They've got to deal with, new furniture, new build out. There's so much headache involved. It's way easier for them to stay and just pay you market rates than it is to leave.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Moving sucks no matter, what size business or whatever. Yeah, it's just terrible. Everything that comes with it. So
yeah, it's miserable moving a 2,000 square foot home. Imagine moving a 10,000 square foot retail store.
Yeah. Or if, you've got you've got industrial in the back with equipment and racks and, storage and moving equipment and moving all that stuff. Yeah, no, no, thanks. So why, Tyler, we're talking about multifamily investors out there. There's a lot of them, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of multifamily gurus, let's call them.
Yep.
Why don't you see that in the commercial space? Why are people just want to, hide because it's so good, they don't want to share? Or is it just people don't understand commercial? They're afraid of it. Why don't we see that same type of, knowledge being shared out there? Like, you can go on YouTube, right? And you don't even have to get a multifamily guru, right? You can listen to podcasts, you can watch YouTube, but that's not really the case with commercial. Why is that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. So it was incredibly frustrating when I first got started. There was hardly any content out there on commercial real estate. There were a few books on Amazon. There were 2 podcasts. One had actually stopped running like a year or 2 before I got started in 2013. So, ran through that one pretty quickly, and 0 videos on YouTube. Yeah. And, I think that there's more of a mentality in commercial real estate that if I share any information with you, I'm creating competition. So I'm not going to tell anybody how to do this. Which I think is just wrong, right? I don't think that that's true. But 2, it can be very complicated, right? There's a lot that you have to understand, and office is different from retail, is different from industrial. So you're really like, multifamily is kind of its own category, and then people put commercial in its own category. But really, in commercial, you could break it out into many different subtypes and then have all sorts of content around all of that. And so, I've gotten comments from guys at CBRE and these other groups that are like, why are you teaching people how to do this on YouTube? Like, why would you share this information?
Really?
Like, dude, I don't care, man. I mean, first of all, 1% of the people that ever watch a video are ever going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
And second of all, most of them are not in Nashville. So, if somebody's doing this in Atlanta, good. Like, that's great. I hope it changes your life. That's why I teach people how to do it, because it's changed my life. But the other thing is, you got to look at the possible benefits that come out of creating this content, right? I mean, I've got partners, I've got investors, I've got clients that have all come out of creating this content. And it's been a total game changer for the business. And honestly, like, it's a great way for me to put out there my vibe. Like, hey, here's how I like to do commercial real estate, and find the other people out there that like doing deals like that. So it's helped me scale my business. So I think it's a great thing to do. Yeah.
Hey, it's marketing, it's advertising. And you get to meet cool people, right? Like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't have a podcast, if I wasn't putting stuff out there. And that's probably one of my favorite things about doing this is I get to meet, awesome people like you that are doing cool things, and just share knowledge, share information. So yeah,
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's kind of giving back, right? I mean, there were so many people that helped us out along the way as we got started. why not broadcast that to other people that may not have those mentors or may not have that, that advantage that we had.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about getting started. So, you worked for a boutique firm and then you decided to go out on your own. Why did you decide to do that? And what was the first thing you did? Like, I love these stories, the kind of like, if you've read Phil Knight's book or what's his name? Steve Schwartzman, Blackstone, his book, just how they started, right? Because it's not what they are today, right? It's,
right.
it's getting down in the dirt, right? So what did that look like? Why'd you leave? And what was the first things you got into?
Yeah, man. I mean, I had a lot of ideas around marketing, and I've been very entrepreneurial since, I was a little kid. And the company that I worked for didn't really care about the commercial real estate brokerage side of things. They just wanted it to be self-serving, to knock out what they wanted to do. And that's great. I fully appreciate that, but it gave me no room for growth. So every time I had a marketing idea, it got shot down. Like, no, that's not really what we want for our brand. I wanted to start hiring a team of brokers to help, not only do our properties, but also do all of these other third-party assignments that I was getting. No, that doesn't really fit what we want to do. So it finally just came to a head, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Well, I mean, I was proven right about all of these marketing ideas that I had, because in the first year, I tripled the amount of business doing my own thing that I was doing with them.
Wow.
So that was a pretty good, just indicator that I was on the right track. I mean, I think that whether you're a developer, you're an investor, you're a broker, no matter what you are, you're a marketer. Like, that's all that it comes down to. I don't care if you can underwrite deals better than anyone else in the world. If nobody knows that you can do that, you'll never be the best investor. So the people that are putting themselves out there, that are, known by more people, they don't even have to be the best. They just have to know how to do it, and they'll find the right tribe. So by going out there and marketing, I mean, we started a blog. I started an Instagram account, back in 2017. I was like the first commercial real estate guy that was really going hard on Instagram. And I got a ton of business out of that.
Yeah.
We started doing the podcast, the YouTube videos in 2020, and that's taken off. I mean, we've got some incredibly strong SEO because of our blogs. We're picking up, I might be buying a self-storage deal. We made 2 offers on it, kind of like an A and a B offer on Friday, because this guy Googled commercial real estate in Tennessee. We were the first ones to pop up. So he called us. He said, hey, if you guys want to buy it, I'll sell it to you. But if you just want to list it, would love for you guys to work with me. So it brings us other deals and opportunities that we may never have had access to before.
Yeah, that's the powerful thing of it, is it,
yeah.
It's a lot of work to go knock doors, go shake hands. But when that essentially is happening overnight in the background through technology, yeah, it's powerful. And I still don't understand why people don't want to do it. At first it's probably uncomfortable, right? Like when I first got on the mic, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to structure a conversation per se, an interview type conversation. But you just got to get out there and do it, right? Just take that first step. Like, this interview is way better than my first one, and 200 more episodes from now will be better than this one. And that's just the way it is.
I mean, it's funny. My one of my first, I think it might be my second or my third YouTube video ever, is still by far my most popular. It's got like over 130,000 views, and the quality of it, and my pitch style, and like, you can tell I'm not very comfortable on camera, is so bad compared to today. But I'm like, I can't take it down. It's an incredibly popular video. It continues to get like 1,000 to 2,000 views a week. Like, we'll leave it up there. But, we filmed it on a phone with a lapel mic with a white wall behind me, like nothing fancy. It was just like, let's just create the content and get it done. And, we've improved 1% every time. And so now you think about it, 350 something videos later, like, our quality is amazing now. And I'm really, really happy with it. But I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't just started. I'm sure my first podcasts were terrible as well, right? It's like, you just got to get out there and practice. But the good thing is, most of the time, nobody's even listening to you when you first get started. So it doesn't matter.
True. But they looked at you, like what your backlog is. Like when they find you now, they said, oh, you've done X amount of videos, X amount of podcasts. Okay. They, there's some authority here. They might not go watch them, but there's some authority here. So that's the important thing, right?
Yep.
And you get to
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've got like 150 podcasts, already out. We've got over 350 YouTube videos. So somebody goes and finds that, and it's just like, well, yeah, the guy's got to know what he's talking about. I just have to like his conversational style, right? I mean, it's a podcast. You got to listen to people for 30 minutes to an hour. So as long as you like that, we've got all the content that you want. And it just gets easier every single one that we do. I'm sure you've found this, right?
Oh, yeah.
The more content you put out there, the more of a library that you've got, the better things are, because it just gives you so much more legitimacy.
And you see what people like, right? Where the views are coming. So then you can focus on that and give, the listeners what they want, instead of just
exactly right.
making whatever and hope they listen or watch. But yeah, so you started a brokerage. That's, I've never been on that side of the business, but I can imagine that took some cojones, right? Because it's eat what you kill, right? So you already had the relationships, but still you can't guarantee they're going to move with you, right? So I commend you on that. So once you got that started, you built out a team, what was kind of your vision with that? Was it just to stay in the brokerage side or now I know you're investing as well, but what kind of was that initial vision and how did you morph that over time?
My thought was like, this is a really good way to continue to meet people and make money until, I learn enough about how to invest in commercial real estate. Yep. I mean, the great thing about being a broker, whether you're in multifamily or commercial, is that you meet all of these different investment groups. You see how they look at deals. They'll show you how they do them. They don't really care. And so you can learn different strategies, right? I mean, I learned, all sorts of different ways to structure a deal just because I was working with clients that structured a deal that way. So it made my life a lot easier, got a lot of practice out of it. But, it's nice because it's active income, right? So I don't have to go close another deal just to make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
We can wait, bide our time, get the right deal done, because I'm already making money from the brokerage. So I don't have to, there's a lot of deal sponsors out there, general partners, that get themselves into trouble because they just look at it and go, we've got to close a deal so I can get an acquisition fee and make some money this year. And they'll get their investors into subpar deals just to make some money. And, fortunately, we don't have to do that. So it's nice having the brokerage as continued active income. It brings us a lot of deals, and it just keeps our name out there in front of all these other people, right? Because the investors that we represent get to know us really well, and then we can, pitch them on property management services, or we can pitch them on project management services, or, hey, Tyler will partner with you on this deal if you want somebody involved to sign on the debt, and we can then help with the leasing and the management and marketing of this property. So it's actually become a pretty good deal source for me, because I get people that I get to know really well going through the process. We find them a deal that we would do ourselves, and then if they want me to partner with them, I will.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that first part up about active income. It's actually a topic. It's a episode I'm recording this week for a solo episode, and how it's not talked about enough. Everyone talks about building this passive income so you can go retire, blah, 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 which that's a whole other argument. Nothing's really passive in my opinion, but
right.
They never talk about the active income and how building a skill set that produces active income is the real solution, because then you can take that money, put it into something that is more passive than that active role, and build wealth over time. While all on top of that, to your point, you're not forced to do something, make an investment to make money, because you already have that active income coming. And I think that's what a lot of syndicators have been doing over the last couple of years is, they need that acquisition fee, they need that asset management fee, whatever it happens to be. So they're just doing deals for that and maybe painting them in a picture that they shouldn't be. So
look, my businesses are 30% of my net worth.
Yeah,
30%. I own a lot of real estate. My businesses are still 30% of my net worth. And without all of that income, I wouldn't be able to qualify for loans, right? True. So it just makes all the sense in the world to keep that going, especially because I've got a team now that really handles everything for me. So I don't have to spend 100% of my time doing it. But it makes a huge difference when you're going to qualify for a loan. So, if you just jump off the deep end and you immediately say, hey, I'm quitting everything else, I'm going to become a syndicator, banks are not really going to like that. not until you've got a significant amount of cash or equity stored up in cash flow. So I think that keeping the active business going while you're building that passive side, like until the passive side is 2 to 3 to 5 or 10x the amount of money that you're making on the active side, it's you got to keep it going.
Yeah. Everyone I've talked to that's made like a really successful transition, and I'm not just saying a transition where, they're 2 years in and everything's going well, but like years after they left the active income or the job, it's to your point. They did the same thing. They waited, till that income that was coming from this side thing, this real estate thing, was greater than their active income. And they had enough time to see that, it was stable to some degree. Right.
Right.
And I think that's what everyone should do. It's not like, I know it gets pitched. I know it's sexy to think, within a year, I'm going to be able to kick my 9 to 5 to, to the curb and live this awesome life with, cash flow coming in. Yeah, that's a great story, but it's yeah, can it be done? Sure. But it's really hard and really rare for it to happen, especially in the syndicator space. If you're doing a typical syndication, you're not, as a GP, you're really not going to make money for 3 to 5 years. And then you got to be able to replicate that too. So even if you do hit that in 3 to 5 years, you still need to keep hitting that every year after. And I don't think go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and it's just going to make your life more difficult.
Yep.
Right. Because banks are going to say, oh, well, I mean, even if you've got an $80,000 W-2, like that is still a significant portion of what the bank is going to look at, because they go, yeah, but no matter what, he's making $80,000 a year, working his job, he'll be able to cover the debt service, whatever. Whereas, if you jump off, I mean, dude, I couldn't, it's funny. I was buying all this commercial property 2 years into starting my businesses, but I couldn't qualify for a home mortgage because, I had probably over 10 or $20 million worth of real estate at this point. 2 years, this is 2020. I couldn't qualify to get a home loan because I was a business owner. Yeah. And you have to have 3 years of historic income in order to be able to qualify for, which I just think it's so funny, right? I'm buying $20 million worth of property. I can't buy a $650,000 house.
Even if you did have 3 years, sometimes they don't treat it. Most of the time, they don't treat it as equal, even if as like W-2 income, right? So you could be a business owner and make like say 500,000, but say you have W-2 and you make like 150, 200. They're going to treat, even though it's less, they're going to treat that 200,000 better than that $500,000 as a business owner. It just makes no sense.
That's exactly right. It makes no sense at all. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like you could easily make $500,000 a year as a real estate professional, but the guy that makes 150, he'll get better loan terms.
Yeah, it's crazy. They just think it's stable, but no, you get fired, that business could go out of business. You don't have any control. Yeah. And the whole, I was kind of hits home because I bought a house earlier this year, and they just, I've a, I'm sure you do too, a complicated tax return just with all the real estate I own and all the businesses that own the real estate and the different businesses we own as well. Yeah. And it was just a pain, right? The income was there, but then, you show a certain amount of losses for, obvious reasons, and they just can't wrap their head around it.
It's funny because the commercial mortgage guys understand how to put that back into your income, because it's just a paper loss. But for whatever reason, the residential, mortgage brokers, they just don't.
They freak out.
They can't comprehend it. Yeah, they're like, "Why are you losing money?" Like, I'm not. It's just a paper loss.
Yeah. I don't want. I'm doing my best to pay the taxes that I rightfully should pay. I don't want to pay more if I don't have to.
Exactly.
But anyways, we could go on about that topic for a while. But so what kind of investments you're making now? I heard some of them when we met in Nashville, and you're doing some really cool stuff. So I'd love you to just talk about kind of the deals you guys do.
Yeah, so we're under construction on a boutique hotel right now, aiming to deliver that next spring. We're under contract on another hotel. We'll do the same thing there, renovate it into a boutique hotel. Both here in Nashville. We just put an offer out on a self-storage facility on Friday, where we could do some value add. I think it's got 30 or 50 units right now. It's zoned for up to 215. So we'll just add some more buildings. Nice. and as those get occupied. And then we've got an adaptive reuse project going on down in Chattanooga. It's about 1.5 million square feet across 29 different buildings. We're just going building by building, renovating and leasing those up. And then I've got a big project here in Nashville on 32 acres. That's a master plan development. So we're just planning what the whole site's going to look like. It's going to basically be the downtown of this neighborhood. And we're selling off pieces to the actual developers.
Oh, cool.
So that'll eventually have about 1,100 apartment units, a few 100,000 square feet of office space, and some ground floor retail.
That's really cool. And now I remember hearing you had this really cool project. I believe it was originally a car wash and now it's something else. Yeah. I'd love to hear about that one again.
Yeah. It's called The Wash. So it's a 6-bay car wash that we converted into 5 micro restaurants and a bar. So they're all really about cool. 380 square feet. We've got 80 seats outside. They're just walk-up counters. And it's been a really fun project. We've got some really great tenants there. Fortunately, it's next door to my office. So I get to walk over there and have lunch every day.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a very unique concept, basically an outdoor food hall, or you could call it a retail-facing ghost kitchen, where, we originally intended them to focus on to-go and delivery. And kind of like like I said, a retail facing ghost kitchen, but people love going over there and hanging out. So,
cool.
We've got, like I said, 80 seats. So, I went there twice this weekend and it was packed both times. So it's been really cool. It's been a fun project.
I love those plays. There's one in my market that used to be a garage car repair shop. And now it's, this really cool coffee shop. You got the fold up doors still, right? It's really cool. So what was the thought behind that? How did that even did you buy it to do that, or did you buy it and then decide later on to do that? How did that all develop?
Yeah. So before the pandemic, my property management company also managed short-term rentals. We had a pretty good size portfolio of Airbnbs that we were managing for other clients. And when the owner of the property was looking at this property, he knew that he couldn't tear the buildings down. He had to work within these existing footprints. So he brought us in to consult on the short-term rental side. And then the pandemic hit. So he was like, well, I'm not going to take the risk and build out Airbnbs right now. So he just started sitting on it. And I kept thinking like, man, this is, it's a waste. Like, we got to find something to do with this property. And, around that time, I kept getting calls from restaurant groups asking if there were any small restaurant spaces with minimal indoor seating so that they could focus on to-go and delivery, because that was still really hot during the pandemic.
Right.
And I kept having to tell them like, no, sorry, that doesn't exist. There's nothing like that in Nashville. And, one day I was driving past the car wash and I had just gotten off the phone with a restaurant group about it. And I kind of looked at it. I was like, I wonder if we turn that into, the like ghost kitchens, like each bay became its own little kitchen, and there was no indoor seating. And so I called my architect. I was like, hey, can this be done? And he said, yeah, you can do that. I was like, okay, well, let's go. So we put it under contract, bought it, and off to the races.
It's really cool. So that's like the cool stuff about commercial in my view, right? It's just, you can do so many, different things with that. And would you say a lot of people are doing that, or is that more of like a kind of like a boutique thing? It's just, I love that, but it's weird. You see it in pockets. Like I was driving through a town the other day where, you could tell the structure of the building, like, oh, that used to be a bank. And now it's this really cool coffee shop. Oh, this place was a Pizza Hut. Now it's, I can't remember what it was, but it's something else. Right. And it's just really cool. And are you seeing this become more popular?
Adaptive reuse has kind of always been there.
Yeah.
But I think especially with how expensive construction has gotten here recently, people are trying to figure out how to work more within the existing buildings. Now I'll say it would have been way cheaper for us to tear the building down and build it new, just because, it was a 50 or 60-year-old car wash. So every wall was an inch off and the elevations kept changing. And, there was a lot of issues with it. But we didn't have that luxury, because if we tore the building down, the city was going to condemn 20 feet of right of way, which was basically half the parcel. So we couldn't do anything with it. But yeah, I love adaptive reuse projects. It keeps a character there that, most people are just not building today. Let's be honest. You look at a lot of the stuff that's going up, and it's plain glass towers, plain, just brick shopping, 3 tenant strip center. It's the same thing over and over again. So I think it's so boring.
I agree.
So gives you a competitive edge to create something a little more unique with what's existing.
What are some other opportunities in the commercial space in the given climate we're in right now in the market?
Yeah, like with adaptive reuse
or just in general, commercial in general. Yeah.
I mean, I love industrial. I think industrial is incredibly hot. If you can build flex space, anything that you build will probably be leased before it delivers. I think that micro units are very much in vogue. Anything, whether that's micro apartment units, micro retail, micro office, those are all doing really well. And, that's one thing I don't understand why the multifamily guys don't look at more. Everybody looks at, what's the average market or average unit size in the market? Like, let's try and build that. But, you're having to charge $2.50 a foot to make it work. Whereas instead of building 650 to 700 square foot units, build a 400 square foot unit.
Yeah.
See what that would look like, 400 to 500 square feet. And you'll probably get $100 a month less than a 600 to 700 square foot unit.
But get more units in there.
And get way more units.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's a lot of benefits to it. And you look at markets like New York and, Tokyo. Now, I know that those are very high density cities.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a need here in the United States in most cities for more affordable housing. And people are willing to pay for smaller places because they don't really want big spots. I mean, I remember when I had the last apartment I rented, it was like over 700 square feet. And I felt like almost a third of it was just wasted space. Like I had this massive kitchen, like a single dude. I don't need a massive kitchen, but that was the smallest unit that they had. So, I mean, there's definitely demand for it.
Yeah. And I think in certain markets, it could play really well. Like one of the markets we're in, it's, a well-known college and a really large health center, right? So they employ like over 10,000 people. And that would be great for that market because you've got busy working professionals, some that are just traveling in and out, right? And to your point, they don't need a lot of square feet. They just need somewhere to, rest their head at night and also maybe get a better rate, right? A little lower. So I could see a market like that. It'd make a lot of sense. And then you can get more units in the building.
That's right.
But yeah, talking about commercial versus multi from obviously zoning's different, but getting approvals, is that process different? Because we're talking about businesses versus, residential or people are actually living. Is the process of getting projects approved any different, easier, harder?
No, I mean, if you're doing development, process is way easier, in my opinion, because I mean, I don't know many neighborhoods that are very openly accepting of 200 to 250 units, right? Unless it's already zoned for that.
Yeah.
So I think, as long as you're you can go through rezonings if you have to, but the great thing about commercial real estate is a lot of these parcels are already zoned for whatever you're wanting to do there. So most of the time, unless you're developing something new, you don't have to go through that process and you can get more creative. In commercial real estate, you don't necessarily have a limit on the amount of tenants that you can have on a property. So you could buy a 10,000 square foot building that has a single tenant today and turn it into a 4-tenant building. You don't have to go through any rezoning to do that. You just have to make sure that you're checking the box on, green space and parking requirements and stuff like that. But there's, in most municipalities, there's no reason you couldn't do that. So that's a very easy value add approach, right? You buy a single tenant, 10,000 square foot retail building, turn it into 4 tenants, 5 tenants, whatever it is, and diversify your income.
And you see a need for that too, the smaller size units when it comes to industrial and commercial. So I feel like there's only
absolutely
a few businesses that would need 10, 20,000 square feet.
Yeah. I mean, there's a fair amount of businesses out there that need that much square footage, but it's more of your smaller businesses that if you can cater towards them, they're still doing really well. You think about the Bridgestones of the world, right? They've got a headquarters here in Nashville. They've got a massive tower and it's pretty much empty because they are big enough to justify work from home. And they get advantages out of that small businesses can't, right? Yeah. I mean, as a small business owner, I've got 10 employees. I don't have the capability to hire middle management to manage these people working remotely. Right. So we're all in the office. Bridgestone Americas can do that, right? They have a whole tier of middle management already set up that is already managing all these people remotely, so it doesn't make a difference to them. So, if you want to talk about future proofing what you're doing, go for smaller businesses. go for smaller suites, and, you can kind of charge a premium on a price per square foot basis, but on a monthly rate, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just going to say, man, so I think there's a lot of benefits to doing that.
And just thinking about that too, it makes sense from, on the residential side, when people talk from going from single family to multi, you reduce your risk. If you have one tenant and they leave, all your income's gone, versus you have one leave and you have three other tenants, not all your income's gone. So I like, that makes sense from that play too, just reducing the risk. And would you see, could you, I know commercials a lot on, dollar per square foot, but could you actually get more for having 4 versus 1, or does it kind of just, even out because it's a cost per square foot?
Yeah, no, I mean, you absolutely could, right? I mean, you might be able to charge, let's just say $15 a foot on 10,000 square feet, right? That's 150,000 a year. But you might be able to charge $20 a foot on 10,000 square feet if you break it up into 2,500 square foot chunks, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the monthly payment is still relatively low for that 2,500 square foot tenant. So, I mean, you could make a significant amount more money by doing that than you could if you just kept it as a single tenant. So now you will have additional costs, right? I mean, you got to pay to demise the suite.
Right.
You've got to, you may have to pay more in leasing commissions because you're charging a higher rate. But at the end of the day, you think about the value that a $200,000 NOI adds to a property compared to a $150,000 NOI, plus the de-riskification, if you want to call it that, of having 4 tenants compared to 1.
Right. I
mean, it's, investors are willing to pay a lower cap rate for that.
It's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. And so let's talk about, finding tenants, because it's a completely different game than, multi-side. Multi is like, there's so many more, right? There's such a bigger pool that people needing a place to live versus business need a place to work. So what does that look like? Is it use the same kind of tools, in a multi-side, it's a lot of social media, you got the apartments.com, you got people calling, people just stop and buy because you got a sign out front, or they're just stopping by anyways to see if you have any space. How does it kind of work on the commercial side?
Yeah, I mean, I want to put a warning out there too on the apartment side. Like, it's been relatively easy for the last 10 years, right, to lease these units.
Oh yeah.
It hasn't always been that way, and it won't always be that way. Yeah. It's really good to invest in like the Southeast because you have so many people moving here. We can't build enough units. At some point, we will develop more units than we need. We'll now have a glut of units and higher vacancy in the market. And you're not going to be able to just post things on apartments.com or right. Facebook or whatever and expect to get tenants. Like, things will change. So you want to make sure that you've got a really good leasing program, no matter what type of property you're buying. And on the commercial side, it's it's all about the marketing, right? So we've got really good SEO on our website. We get big signs up in front of the property. We send out blasts to brokers. We'll sometimes run ads if we need to. We'll do YouTube videos on it. We'll put it up on LoopNet and Crexy. Sometimes we'll even do Craigslist because you just never know. Sometimes you got a small business owner that just goes on Craigslist and finds a space. So we've gotten good success out of that. And then also, I've got a team of guys that are out there constantly talking to business owners, right? They're either knocking on doors, asking them about a property or, whatever that may be. And so we have just a massive amount of inbound leads coming on these assets that makes it a lot easier. And we can also be proactive about that leasing too. It's tougher to do that on the apartment side, right? Yeah. I mean, how are you just going to sit down and start cold calling people that might be a potential tenant? It's next to impossible. Whereas we can say, okay, well, we know that this space is perfectly suited for a plumbing company. Let's call the 50 plumbing companies within, a 5-mile radius and see if any of them need to move. So we can be proactive about it. And the great thing about having my own brokerage is that, those guys might say, oh, no, that 2,500 square foot space doesn't work for me. We need 5,000 square feet. Okay, cool. Well, we'll help you go find that. So you can kind of create it and turn it into multiple business streams.
Yeah, that's smart. That's why vertical integration in any business you do makes so much sense, because you're getting the whole pie instead of just, pieces of it. And you're also providing value to your customer too. Whereas you're like, oh, sorry, I can't help you with that. And like, oh, well, I got a team over here can help you with that. We'll provide you the same level of customer service. and it's just a one-stop shop, and people love that. So
that's exactly right. Make it easy on them.
Yeah, exactly. I can see why. Well, there's many reasons why you're successful, but I can see, that's definitely a big one, right? That you can provide that level of customer service amongst a multitude of offerings. But yeah, man, it's so true what you saw on the multi too, that it's not going to be this easy for forever. I remember putting up one, it was a year ago or so, on apartments.com, one unit, one of the markets we're in. And I just happened to look at it, and it was like, it wasn't even 2 weeks, and there was over 17,000 views on just one unit. It's, that's just easy. I'm not taking any credit for like, I'm really great operator, that's just easy. Right. So, I think to your point, it comes down to having multiple ways of executing, and then actually executing with world-class customer service. Cause I think that's what it comes down to. It's just providing high level service. So you can get, word of mouth out there, referrals. Cause in my experience, that's the best way to do it. If you have a great resident on your property and you treat them really well, and then they refer you to their friend, you have a really good chance of getting another high quality person. And in my experience, having high quality people as a tenant versus non-high quality people makes your life a lot easier on the multi side. So, I
mean, I did that when I lived in an apartment complex, right? I had buddies moving to Nashville. They're like, where should I live? I was like, dude, I love where I live. You should check this place out.
Right.
So they all ended up signing leases there.
Hey, it works. Yeah, man, this has been a great conversation. We're coming close to the top of the hour. I don't want to take too much of your time, but anything that I haven't hit on that you'd love to talk about? There's, this is a new space for me per se. So there's probably a lot of questions I could have asked that I didn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think for the audience, it's just be curious about commercial real estate, right? I mean, take the time to learn a little bit more about it. If nothing else, it'll help you do better on your multifamily investments, because you might say, oh, you know what? We can add a coffee shop to our apartment complex instead of having just a coffee machine that is broken all the damn time and just pisses the residents off. Let's get somebody in here and we can, make money on it instead of spending money on it. So yeah, I mean, check out my podcast, The Commercial Real Estate Investor. I've got a whole bunch of YouTube videos out there just under my name, Tyler Cauble. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Just be curious about commercial real estate and go learn some more about it.
Thanks, man. And you also have a YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah. It's just under my name.
Same thing.
Tyler Cauble.
Okay. Yeah, you guys should check that out. I've watched episodes. He produces some quality stuff. So, hey man, I just want to thank you for taking the time. Also coming back on after we had some technical difficulties. So I appreciate that, man.
No worries, Shawn.
But yeah,
appreciate you having me on, man. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, it is. And I'll probably have you back on, man, to
anytime
to dive deeper into it. All right, everybody.
We'll do it.
Thanks for tuning in. And as always, easy doesn't pay well, and instant gratification is self-destructive. So not only get out there and work hard for your money, but have it work harder for you. Because at the end of the day, it's creating a life of personal excellence so we can all make the world a better place. And that's how it's done. Like people like Tyler, getting out there and crushing it, giving back, and the world just becomes a better place. So I'll catch y'all on the next one. Hey, this is Shawn Winslow. After being in the financial service industry for years and having candid conversations with good people just like you, I realized that so many of us are wanting an investment strategy that provides solid returns and consistent income without the bumps in the road. There's little known secret that your financial advisor doesn't want you to know. There is investment out there that is less volatile and the returns are stronger. Get more details by going to greenbriercg.com and clicking on the free e-report. And by the way, if this show has provided you any value, then feel free to leave an honest written review and of course share it with a friend who needs it. See you next week for another great show.